yesterday we talked about polygons in general. They all use that formula, n minus 2 times 180. They all have external angles equal to 360. Now we're going to zoom in and just look at quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals have how many sides? 4. Okay? And quadrilaterals are divided into 3 groups. Parallelograms, and parallelograms have 2 sets of parallel sides. Trapezoids, which have 1 set of parallel sides. And general quadrilaterals, which have 0 sets of parallel sides. And the one special general quadrilateral we're going to look at are kites. Okay. So we divide quadrilaterals into how many parallel sides they have. 2 sets, 1 set, no sets. Okay? And today we're just going to look at parallelograms. And knowing the properties of a parallelogram is going to be key. Okay? So you have to memorize the properties. And the properties are right here. Okay? So these have to be memorized. You got to take some time and make sure you memorize those. Okay? So in case I haven't mentioned it, you got to memorize these. Okay? All right? And knowing it's a parallelogram, the other thing that we always kind of know in the background is opposite sets of sides are parallel because it's a parallelogram. That's a definition of a parallelogram. Okay? The symbol for parallelogram is like a little mini parallelogram with all the corners listed. So A, B, C, D goes there. So that says parallelogram A, B, C, D. Okay? And the properties are that in every single parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. And that kind of makes logical sense because if the opposite sides are parallel, okay, that means that there's the same distance. Doesn't parallel mean they're the same distance apart everywhere? So A and D are part of that line, so they're the same distance apart as B and C, right? That's why AD and BC are equal, because they're cut apart by 2 sides that are the same distance apart. Same thing with AB and CD. Those are cut by 2 parallel lines, so they're also the same length. Okay? Also, opposite angles are congruent. So A is congruent to C, B is congruent to D. Consecutive, and consecutive means one right after the other. Consecutive angles are supplementary, and supplementary means they equal 180. Good. So consecutive angles are supplementary. That means A plus B equals 180. Means B plus C equals 180. C plus D equals 180. And the diagonals of the parallel, I'm sorry? Well, how would I figure that out? Think about yesterday. Yeah, n minus 2 times 180. So 4 minus 2 times 180. Yep. And then the last one is diagonals bisect each other. Okay? So if I draw in BD and AC, the place where they cross would be the midpoints of the 2 sides. Okay? All right. So let's do some algebra based on the characteristics of a parallelogram, which, did I mention they have to be memorized? Yeah? Okay, good. All right, so let's say I'm going to solve for x. What characteristic is going to help me solve for x? Yeah, opposite sides are congruent. So Sam, give me a equation that would solve for x. 5x plus 19 equals 7x. Okay, solve it, subtract 5x from both sides. I get 19 equals 2x. Divide by 2, and I get x is equal to 9.5. Okay? Now, Sam is brilliant, so I really don't need to worry, but what if I wanted to check it? How would I check it? Yes? Yeah, I plug 9.5 into both equations or both expressions and see if they equal each other. So what's 7 times 9.5? Somebody 7 times 9.5? Good. 66.5. How about 5 times 9.5 minus 19? Oh, plus 19, sorry. What is it? 66.5? Awesome. Okay, so that's just a good check that I did it right. Okay? Yeah. Yep. Wait. No, that's not doing for y. What characteristic am I going to use to solve for y? Jackson, what do you think? What characteristics is going to help me solve for y? Okay, well, they're angles, right? So it's either going to be opposite angles or consecutive angles. Which ones are those? They're consecutive, so they are, right. So give me an equation that would solve for y. What does supplementary mean? Yeah, if you add them up, it equals 180. Right? Good. So 6y plus 5 plus 10y minus 1 equals 180. And he went ahead and consolidated like terms. So 6y and 10y is 16y, and positive 5 and negative 1 is positive 4. Okay, so you subtract 4 and you get 16y equals 176. Divide by 16 and you get y is 11. And then to check it, plug it in. 6 times 11 is 66 plus 5 is 71. 110 times 11 is 110 minus 1 is 109. Are those right? What's 109 plus 71? 180. Good. Okay? Of a parallelogram, but we only have 3. So A is at 1, negative 2. B is at negative 2, 3. And D is at 5, negative 1. Okay? We need to find C. So where generally, we may not know exactly, but where in general is it going to be? In what quadrant? 1, right. Okay? I know because it has to go in order, like A, B, C has to be next, and then D. Okay? That's how I know it's got to be up here. All right? Then the things I know about parallelograms is that the opposite sides are congruent, the opposite sides are parallel, and diagonals bisect each other. So which of those 3 characteristics do you think I'm going to use to find C? Yeah, opposite sides are parallel. Okay, so AD and BC are opposite of each other, right? So if AD goes up 1 over 4, so if the slope of AD is 1/4, shouldn't the slope of BC be the same? So to get from B to C, I would go up 1 over 4. So there's C. And then I can fill in just to make sure it looks right. Yeah. And I could have done, I didn't have to do AD and BC. I could have done AB and DC. So I could have said, to get from A to B, I go left 1, 2, 3, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I could go left 1, 2, 3, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would have put, I could have done the same thing because opposite sides are parallel. So it didn't matter which set of two. Okay. Now let's say I want to put in my diagonals. I know that the diagonals, what's characteristic? They bisect each other. That means if I find the midpoint of BD and the midpoint of AC, shouldn't they be the same? Right? So BD, to find the midpoint, I add up the x's. So negative 2 plus 5 is 3 divided by 2. And 3 plus negative 1 is 2 divided by 2. So the midpoint of BD is 1 1/2, 1. So 1 1/2, 1 would be right there. Okay? That's BD. AC should be the same. C is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So C is 2, 4. So I add the x's for A and C. So 1 plus 2 is 3 over 2. And 4 plus negative 2 is 2 over 2. So the midpoint of AC is, again, 1 1/2, 1. Right there. So I can put my diagonals in there because I calculated the midpoint and they were the same. Yes? I found you could do it two ways. The red way is finding AD and BC.